She wasn't supposed to be on the range that morning. Her orders had been clear: report to the administrative building for disciplinary review at 0800 hours. The rifle case slung across her shoulder told a different story. Staff Sergeant Maya Chen walked past the duty officer without explanation, her boots silent against the concrete floor of the weapons facility. The Barrett, .50 caliber lay secured in its custom case, a weapon that hadn't been fired in active service for nearly 3 years. Most personnel assumed it was just another piece of surplus equipment waiting for decommission. They were wrong about the rifle. They were wrong about her. The morning mist hung low across Fort Davidson's training grounds, creating ghostly shadows between the target ranges. Maya moved with purpose through the pre-dawn darkness, her movements economical and precise. She had learned long ago that wasted motion led to wasted opportunities, and today she could afford neither. The disciplinary hearing would decide whether she remained in service or faced discharge for insubordination. Her commanding officer, Colonel Marcus Hendricks, had made his position clear during their last encounter. Female snipers were a liability in his unit, regardless of their scores or service records. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya reached range 7 as the first light began to pierce the morning fog. The facility stretched across 1,200 meters of carefully maintained terrain, with targets positioned at intervals that challenged even the most experienced marksman. She had walked this range countless times during her initial training, but never under circumstances like these. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she unlocked the rifle case, revealing the Barrett, .50 caliber that had earned its reputation through decades of precision shooting. The weapon bore no special markings, no custom engravings, just the standard military specifications that had made it legendary among those who understood its capabilities. The rifle felt familiar in her grip despite the months that had passed since she last held it. Every component had been maintained to perfection, each adjustment calibrated to specifications that existed nowhere in the official manuals. Maya had learned these modifications during her advanced training at Fort Benning, where the most elite snipers gathered to push the boundaries of long-range shooting. Her instructor there had been a quiet man named Sergeant First Class David Chen, who taught marksmanship with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He never spoke about his own service record, but his hands carried scars that told stories of precision shooting under impossible conditions. As Maya settled into position behind the rifle, the familiar weight distribution reminded her of countless hours spent perfecting her technique. The bipod legs adjusted automatically to the uneven ground, and the scope aligned with her dominant eye without conscious thought. These were movements burned into muscle memory through repetition and dedication. She had spent 3 years rebuilding her shooting skills after the incident that had grounded her from active sniper duty, working through doubts and setbacks that would have ended most careers. The official report cited equipment failure, but Maya knew the truth was more complicated than bureaucratic language could capture. The targets at range 7 were set at standard military distances, beginning at 300 meters and extending to the maximum effective range at 1,500 meters. Each position presented unique challenges: wind patterns that shifted with the terrain, elevation changes that affected trajectory calculations, and lighting conditions that changed throughout the day. Maya began her sight adjustments with mechanical precision, her breathing settling into the controlled rhythm that preceded accurate shooting. The morning air carried no sound except the distant hum of the base waking up around them. Colonel Hendricks arrived at the range 20 minutes later, accompanied by 2 junior officers and a master sergeant whose expression suggested this was not his preferred way to start the morning. Hendricks had built his reputation on strict adherence to regulation and an unwavering belief that combat roles should remain gender-specific. His unit had never included female snipers, and he intended to maintain that tradition regardless of changing military policies. He viewed Maya's presence as both a challenge to his authority and a distraction from the serious business of preparing soldiers for combat deployment. The colonel's voice carried across the range with the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. "Staff Sergeant Chen, you are in violation of direct orders and unauthorized possession of restricted weapons. Secure that rifle immediately and report for disciplinary action. Maya's response came without lifting her eye from the scope, her voice steady and respectful despite the circumstances. Sir, I request permission to demonstrate the operational readiness of this weapon system before it is returned to storage. The request caught Hendricks off guard, not because it was unexpected, but because it was delivered with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. The exchange that followed would be remembered by everyone present, though each would tell the story differently in years to come. Hendricks approached Maya's position with the swagger of a man accustomed to intimidating subordinates into submission. His hand reached for the Barrett's barrel, intending to physically remove the weapon from her control. Maya's reaction was instantaneous and precise. She pivoted away from the rifle, her left hand intercepting his wrist while her right maintained contact with the weapon. The joint lock she applied was textbook perfect, applying pressure to the exact point where bone and ligament created maximum leverage with minimal force. Hendricks found himself on his knees before he understood what had happened, his wrist locked in a position that threatened serious injury if he resisted. Maya's voice remained calm as she explained the situation to the stunned officers watching from a safe distance. Sir, I respectfully request that you allow me to complete this demonstration. I believe the results will speak for themselves. She released the hold with the same fluid motion that had applied it, leaving Hendricks to massage his wrist while trying to salvage his dignity in front of his subordinates. The challenge was now explicit rather than implied. Maya had physically demonstrated that underestimating her capabilities carried consequences, but the real test lay ahead. Hendricks straightened his uniform and gestured toward the targets with barely controlled anger. 8 targets, he said, his voice tight with frustration. Maximum distance, 1 shot each. Miss a single target and you face court-martial for assault on a superior officer. Maya nodded her acceptance, understanding that the stakes had escalated beyond simple disciplinary action. This was now about proving that her place in the military was earned through ability rather than accommodation. The first target sat at 600 meters, a standard silhouette that represented the minimum engagement distance for the Barrett system. Maya settled behind the rifle once again, her breathing slowing as she entered the mental state that separated exceptional snipers from merely competent ones. The crosshairs found the target center with mathematical precision, and her finger applied pressure to the trigger with the gradual increase that prevented jerky movements. The rifle fired with a sound that echoed across the entire base, and the target dropped immediately. Target elimination at 600 meters was well within the expected parameters for the Barrett, .50 caliber, but Maya's technique drew appreciative nods from the master sergeant who had accompanied Hendricks. The shot placement was perfect center mass, exactly where it needed to be for guaranteed incapacitation. More impressive was the speed with which she had acquired the target and made the necessary calculations for wind and elevation. These were skills that required years to develop and constant practice to maintain.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The second target waited at 800 meters, positioned to take advantage of a crosswind that had strengthened with the rising sun. Maya adjusted her scope with small, precise movements, compensating for environmental factors that less experienced shooters might overlook. The mathematics of long-range shooting became increasingly complex as distances increased, requiring shooters to account for variables that included air pressure, humidity, temperature gradients, and the Coriolis effect caused by the Earth's rotation. Maya's calculations were performed instinctively, the result of training that had transformed physics equations into muscle memory. Her second shot struck the target with the same devastating accuracy as the first, prompting one of the junior officers to comment that perhaps they were witnessing something extraordinary. Hendricks remained silent, his earlier confidence beginning to erode as Maya demonstrated capabilities that exceeded his expectations. The third target at 1,000 meters required more time for setup, as the increased distance magnified every small error in technique or calculation. Maya's adjustments were minute and methodical, each movement serving a specific purpose in the complex sequence that preceded accurate long-range shooting. The third shot connected with authority that left no doubt about Maya's proficiency with the Barrett system. The target disappeared in a cloud of debris that was visible even at the extreme distance, indicating that the heavy, .50 caliber projectile had struck with full effect. The watching officers exchanged glances that suggested they were beginning to understand that this demonstration was more than simple marksmanship. Maya was proving a point that extended beyond her individual capabilities to encompass the broader question of who belonged in elite military units. Targets 4 and 5 were positioned at 1,200 and 1,300 meters respectively, distances that pushed the Barrett system toward its maximum effective range. At these distances, the margin for error became vanishingly small, and even expert shooters might require multiple attempts to achieve consistent hits. Maya approached each shot with the same methodical preparation, her scope adjustments becoming more precise as the challenges increased. The fourth target fell with the same certainty as the previous three, followed quickly by the fifth as Maya demonstrated that distance was merely another variable to be calculated and overcome. The sixth target sat at 1,400 meters, a distance where atmospheric conditions became as important as shooting technique. The morning air had stabilized, reducing the wind variations that could push projectiles off course, but the extreme range meant that even small errors would be magnified dramatically by the time the bullet reached its destination. Maya's preparation for this shot took longer, not because she lacked confidence, but because she understood the mathematics involved. When the sixth target dropped, the silence from the observing officers spoke volumes about their growing recognition of her abilities. Target 7 waited at the maximum mark distance of 1,500 meters, nearly a mile from Maya's firing position. At this range, the Barrett .50 caliber was approaching the theoretical limits of its accuracy, requiring perfect conditions and flawless technique to achieve reliable hits. Maya's scope adjustments were minimal now, fine-tuning calculations that had been building throughout the entire sequence. Her breathing slowed to an almost meditative rhythm as she prepared for a shot that would test every aspect of her training and experience. The seventh shot seemed to take forever to reach its target, the heavy projectile following a trajectory that arced high above the intervening terrain before delivering its payload with devastating effect. The target's destruction was visible even at the extreme distance, confirming what the observers had begun to suspect. They were witnessing a level of marksmanship that exceeded normal military standards. Maya had just demonstrated that she could engage targets at distances where most snipers would struggle to achieve consistent results. The eighth and final target presented a unique challenge. Positioned at an angle that required Maya to account for both distance and deflection, it tested her ability to make complex calculations under pressure. Hendricks had chosen this target specifically because it represented the kind of shot that separated truly elite snipers from those who were merely competent. The mathematics involved multiple variables that had to be processed simultaneously, and a mistake in any calculation would result in a clean miss that would validate his decision to exclude women from sniper roles. Maya's preparation for the final shot was unhurried despite the pressure she faced. Her scope adjustments were precise and confident, based on calculations that incorporated every environmental factor affecting projectile flight. When she finally pressed the trigger, the shot felt different from the previous 7. This was not just about hitting a target, it was about proving that capability transcended the preconceptions that had limited her opportunities for advancement. The 8th target fell with the same finality as the others, completing a perfect sequence that left the observing officers speechless. Maya had just demonstrated 8 consecutive hits at extreme range under challenging conditions, a feat that would have been impressive for any sniper regardless of experience or background. More importantly, she had done it while under direct challenge from a superior officer who had questioned her right to serve in a combat role. Colonel Hendricks stood in silence as Maya secured the Barrett and prepared to face whatever consequences would follow her unauthorized demonstration. The master sergeant approached him with an expression that suggested urgent communication, and their whispered conversation lasted several minutes before Hendricks nodded grimly and walked back toward Maya's position. His demeanor had changed subtly, the aggressive confidence replaced by something that might have been grudging respect. "Staff Sergeant Chen," the colonel said, his voice carrying a different tone than before. "That was exceptional shooting by any standard. However, unauthorized use of weapons and assault on a superior officer remain serious charges that cannot be ignored." Maya accepted this with the same calm she had maintained throughout the demonstration, understanding that proving her capabilities did not automatically resolve the disciplinary issues that had brought her to this point. The master sergeant stepped forward with a manila folder that he handed to Hendricks without comment. The colonel opened it and read the contents with growing surprise, his expression shifting from anger to confusion to something approaching awe. The documentation inside the folder explained what Maya had been unable to tell him herself. The Barrett .50 caliber she had just used was not standard military equipment. It was a weapon system that had been modified and customized by Sergeant First Class David Chen during his service as one of the Army's most elite snipers. David Chen's service record was legendary among those who knew the truth about America's most classified military operations. He had served multiple combat deployments in situations where conventional forces could not operate effectively, using long-range precision shooting to eliminate high-value targets under impossible conditions. His confirmed kills numbered in the dozens, but the full extent of his contributions remained classified at levels that few officers would ever access. The Barrett rifle Maya had used was his personal weapon, modified with techniques that existed nowhere in official documentation. The folder contained additional information that explained Maya's connection to this legendary weapon and its equally legendary operator. Sergeant First Class David Chen had been her father, killed in action during a classified operation when Maya was still in high school. The Barrett had been returned to his family along with his personal effects, but its true significance had remained unknown until Maya enlisted and began her own journey toward becoming a sniper. Her 3-year rebuilding project had not just been about restoring a rifle, it had been about understanding the legacy that her father had left behind. Colonel Hendricks closed the folder and looked at Maya with new understanding. The rifle she carried was not just a weapon, it was a connection to a tradition of excellence that predated his own service. Her shooting demonstration had not been about proving her individual capabilities, it had been about honoring the memory of one of the Army's most effective operators. The modifications that had enabled her perfect accuracy were the result of decades of refinement by someone whose understanding of long-range shooting had helped establish the doctrine that current snipers still followed. The disciplinary hearing that Maya had expected never took place. Instead, she found herself transferred to a specialized unit where her unique skills and equipment could be utilized effectively. Colonel Hendricks never spoke publicly about the events at Range 7, but his unit policies regarding female snipers underwent quiet revision in the months that followed. The Barrett .50 caliber returned to active service, carried by someone who understood both its capabilities and the legacy it represented. Maya's new assignment took her to places where conventional warfare had given way to precision operations requiring exceptional skill and equipment. Her father's rifle proved its worth repeatedly in situations where standard weapons would have been inadequate, and her own abilities continued to develop as she learned to fully utilize the modifications he had created. The tradition of excellence that had begun with David Chen's service continued through his daughter's dedication to the same principles of precision and professionalism that had made him legendary. The story of what happened at Range 7 spread through military channels despite official efforts to maintain discretion. It became part of the informal history that passes between soldiers when they gather to share tales of exceptional service and individual courage. The details changed with each telling, but the central message remained constant. Capability should be measured by results rather than preconceptions, and tradition is best honored by those who understand its true meaning. Years later, when Maya had earned her own reputation as one of the military's most effective long-range specialists, she would occasionally return to Range 7 to practice with the Barrett that had changed her career. The targets remained in the same positions, waiting to challenge anyone bold enough to attempt shots at maximum distance. But few possessed both the skill and the equipment necessary to consistently hit targets at ranges where atmospheric conditions became as important as marksmanship technique. The rifle case that accompanied Maya on these practice sessions contained more than just a weapon. It held the accumulated knowledge of 2 generations of snipers who had pushed the boundaries of what was possible with precision shooting. The modifications that David Chen had developed continued to prove their worth decades after his death, enabling shots that would have been impossible with standard equipment. His legacy lived on not just in the weapon itself, but in the understanding that excellence was achieved through dedication rather than accommodation. Maya never spoke publicly about her father's service or the true capabilities of the Barrett system she carried. Such discretion was part of the professional culture that had shaped both their careers, where results spoke louder than publicity, and recognition came from peers who understood the difficulty of what had been accomplished. The 8 perfect shots at range 7 remained her answer to anyone who questioned whether she belonged among the military's elite operators. The morning mist that had shrouded Fort Davidson during Maya's demonstration eventually lifted, revealing targets that bore silent testimony to exceptional marksmanship under pressure. The range itself returned to normal operations, hosting training exercises for conventional snipers who worked to develop the skills that Maya and her father had already mastered. But those who had witnessed the events of that morning carried with them a deeper understanding of what was possible when tradition met capability in the hands of someone worthy of both. Colonel Hendricks continued his career with a broader perspective on the capabilities that existed within the modern military. His encounter with Maya had challenged assumptions that he had carried throughout his service, forcing him to recognize that excellence could emerge from unexpected sources. The wrist that Maya had locked during their confrontation healed quickly, but the lesson she had taught him about underestimating others based on preconceptions lasted much longer. The Barrett .50 caliber that had begun as surplus equipment destined for storage found new purpose in the hands of someone who understood its potential. The modifications that had once been known only to David Chen were preserved and refined by his daughter, ensuring that the knowledge gained through years of combat experience would not be lost to bureaucratic indifference. The tradition of precision shooting that had been established by one generation was carried forward by the next, proving that some legacies transcend the individuals who create them. Range 7 remained available for training exercises and equipment testing, its targets positioned at distances that challenged even experienced marksmen. But it would always be remembered as the place where Maya Chen proved that capability could not be limited by convention, and where a Barrett .50 caliber rifle demonstrated that some weapons were more than just tools. They were connections to traditions of excellence that deserved to be honored by those with the skill and dedication to carry them forward. The transfer orders arrived 3 weeks after the incident at Range 7, delivered in a manila envelope that bore classifications Maya had never seen before. Her new assignment would take her to Fort Bragg, where she would join a unit that existed in the spaces between official military structures. The 3rd Special Operations Support Battalion operated under directives that came directly from Pentagon offices where decisions were made by people whose names appeared on no organizational charts. Maya understood immediately that her demonstration with the Barrett had attracted attention from individuals who recognized the value of exceptional capabilities when applied to unconventional problems. Master Sergeant Elena Rodriguez met Maya at the processing center with the professional demeanor of someone accustomed to evaluating new personnel based on reputation rather than first impressions. Rodriguez had served 15 years in special operations, including multiple deployments where precision shooting had meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Her own expertise with long-range weapons systems was legendary among the small community of operators who specialized in eliminating high-value targets under extreme conditions. She studied Maya with the calculating gaze of someone who had learned to assess capabilities through observation rather than documentation. The briefing room where Rodriguez conducted Maya's initial orientation contained maps and satellite imagery that depicted locations across 3 continents. Red pins marked positions where Special Operations Forces had conducted successful missions, while blue pins indicated areas where conventional military forces had proven inadequate to accomplish strategic objectives. The pattern was clear to anyone familiar with asymmetric warfare. Precision operations conducted by small, highly skilled teams could achieve results that entire divisions might struggle to accomplish through conventional means. Rodriguez opened a classified folder and spread its contents across the briefing table, revealing photographs and technical specifications that immediately captured Maya's attention. The images showed Barrett .50 caliber rifle systems that had been modified far beyond military standards, incorporating technology that existed nowhere in official procurement channels. Each weapon represented months of custom work by specialists who understood both the theoretical limits of long-range shooting and the practical requirements of operations where failure carried lethal consequences. The modifications were similar to those Maya had discovered in her father's rifle but refined through years of additional development. "Your father's work was pioneering," Rodriguez explained, her voice carrying the respect that special operations personnel reserved for truly exceptional contributions. But he was working alone, limited by the resources available to individual operators. What you're seeing here represents the evolution of his concepts when applied by teams with unlimited research budgets and access to technologies that didn't exist during his service. The question now is whether you can adapt your techniques to equipment that operates at the absolute edge of what's physically possible. The first weapon Rodriguez demonstrated was externally identical to a standard Barrett .50 caliber, but its internal components had been replaced with materials and mechanisms that pushed the system's performance beyond factory specifications. The barrel was manufactured from alloys developed for aerospace applications, providing stability and heat dissipation characteristics that enabled sustained accurate fire under conditions that would degrade conventional weapons. The trigger mechanism had been redesigned to eliminate mechanical variations that could affect shot placement, while the scope mounting system incorporated gyroscopic stabilization technology adapted from military aviation platforms. Maya's initial range session with the modified Barrett revealed both the potential and the challenges of working with equipment that operated at the theoretical limits of precision shooting. The weapon's accuracy was extraordinary, consistently placing shots within fractions of an inch at distances where conventional rifles might achieve group sizes measured in feet. However, the increased capability came with corresponding increases in complexity, requiring shooters to master techniques and calculations that exceeded standard military training by substantial margins. The learning curve was steep even for someone with Maya's background and experience. The training regimen that Rodriguez designed pushed Maya's abilities to their absolute limits while introducing concepts that redefined her understanding of long-range engagement. Traditional sniper training focused on eliminating individual targets under controlled conditions, but special operations required the capability to engage multiple targets simultaneously while operating in environments where detection meant immediate retaliation. Maya learned to use advanced ballistic computers that could calculate firing solutions for complex scenarios involving moving targets, adverse weather conditions, and engagement ranges that approached the theoretical maximum for small arms weapons. Advanced target identification became a critical component of Maya's expanded skill set, as special operations often involved discriminating between legitimate military targets and civilian non-combatants in situations where visual identification was impossible through conventional means. She learned to use thermal imaging systems that could detect heat signatures through concealment, while radar-based target acquisition technology enabled engagement of targets that were completely hidden from optical observation. The ethical implications of these capabilities required extensive training to ensure that lethal force was applied with appropriate discrimination and restraint. Maya's proficiency with the enhanced Barrett system developed rapidly under Rodriguez's guidance, but her training extended far beyond marksmanship to encompass the full spectrum of skills required for independent operations behind enemy lines. She learned advanced camouflage and concealment techniques that could render her invisible to both human observation and electronic surveillance systems. Urban warfare skills enabled effective operation in environments where civilian populations provided both cover and complications. Survival training prepared her to operate independently for extended periods in hostile territory where resupply was impossible and extraction uncertain. The first operational deployment came 6 months after Maya's arrival at Fort Bragg, when intelligence sources identified a high-value target whose elimination required capabilities that exceeded those of conventional military forces. The target was a terrorist leader whose operations had killed hundreds of civilians across multiple countries, but his location in a densely populated urban environment made conventional military strikes impossible without massive collateral damage. The mission parameters called for precise elimination from extreme range under conditions that would challenge even the most experienced operators. Maya's insertion into the operational area was conducted through methods that left no official record of American military involvement. She traveled under civilian cover through multiple countries, carrying forged documentation that would survive casual inspection while concealing equipment in commercial cargo shipments that attracted no attention from customs authorities. Her final approach to the target area was made on foot through mountainous terrain that provided concealment from aerial observation while offering sight lines to the urban area where the target was known to operate. The hide site that Maya established overlooked the target area from a distance of nearly 2 kilometers, positioning her far beyond the range of conventional counter-sniper measures while providing clear observation of locations where intelligence sources indicated the target might appear. The position required her to remain motionless for extended periods while monitoring multiple potential engagement sites through advanced optical systems that could detect human activity across vast distances. Environmental conditions included temperature variations that affected equipment performance and wind patterns that changed throughout the day as thermal currents shifted across the mountainous terrain. Target identification protocols required Maya to confirm identity through multiple independent sources before authorization for lethal force could be granted. Visual confirmation through high magnification optics was supplemented by electronic surveillance that monitored communications frequencies used by the target's security detail. Satellite imagery provided real-time updates on movement patterns that helped predict when and where the target might present a viable engagement opportunity. The complexity of positive identification under these conditions demonstrated why conventional forces were inadequate for missions requiring both precision and discretion. The shot that eliminated the target was taken under conditions that tested every aspect of Maya's training and equipment capabilities. Atmospheric conditions were marginal, with crosswinds that varied in intensity and direction across the extended range to target. Temperature gradients created by the urban heat island effect introduced ballistic complications that required constant recalculation of firing solutions. The target appeared briefly in an upper-story window before moving toward concealment, providing an engagement window measured in seconds rather than minutes. Maya's Barrett system performed flawlessly despite the extreme demands of the engagement, delivering its projectile with accuracy that placed the shot within millimeters of the calculated impact point. The target was eliminated instantly without awareness of the threat, while surrounding individuals remained unaware that an engagement had occurred until security personnel discovered the body minutes later. Maya's extraction from the hide site was conducted immediately following the shot, as intelligence sources had warned that the target's security forces included counter-sniper specialists who would respond rapidly to any indication of long-range attack. The success of Maya's first operational deployment established her reputation within the special operations community as someone capable of accomplishing missions that exceeded normal parameters for precision shooting. However, it also attracted attention from adversary intelligence services that began developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize the capabilities she represented. Electronic warfare specialists worked to create detection systems that could identify the signatures produced by advanced sniper weapons, while urban planners in hostile territories began incorporating anti-sniper measures into building designs and security protocols. Maya's second deployment occurred in a different geographical region where the target environment presented unique challenges that tested her adaptability and problem-solving abilities. The mission involved eliminating a weapons dealer whose activities were supplying terrorist organizations with advanced military equipment, but the target's location in a neutral country required absolute deniability regarding American involvement. Additionally, the target maintained security measures that included counter-surveillance capabilities and protective details trained by former special operations personnel who understood the threats posed by long-range precision shooting. The operational planning for Maya's second mission required extensive coordination between multiple intelligence agencies and special operations units, as the target's elimination had to appear accidental while actually being accomplished through precision shooting from extreme range. Cover stories were developed that would explain the target's death through plausible circumstances unrelated to military action, while Maya's presence in the area was concealed through elaborate deception operations that created false trails leading intelligence services away from American involvement. Maya's approach to the target area was conducted through commercial aviation and ground transportation that attracted no attention from surveillance systems monitoring for military personnel. Her equipment was concealed within legitimate business cargo that would survive inspection by customs authorities, while her personal documentation identified her as a commercial photographer whose presence in the region could be explained through publicly verifiable business activities. The complexity of maintaining operational security under these conditions demonstrated the evolution of special operations beyond conventional military paradigms. The engagement site Maya selected was located in industrial terrain that provided concealment while offering sightlines to locations where the target was expected to appear based on intelligence analysis of his behavioral patterns. However, the industrial environment also presented unique challenges including electromagnetic interference from heavy machinery that could affect electronic equipment, while chemical emissions from manufacturing processes created atmospheric conditions that influenced ballistic calculations. Maya's preparation for the engagement required her to account for environmental factors that existed nowhere in standard training scenarios. The target's security measures included systematic variation of routes and schedules designed to prevent predictable patterns that could be exploited by adversaries. Intelligence sources provided probability matrices that indicated likely locations and times when the target might be vulnerable to long-range engagement, but these calculations required Maya to maintain readiness across multiple potential sites while adapting to changing conditions that could shift engagement parameters without warning. The mental and physical demands of sustained readiness under these conditions tested her endurance as much as her marksmanship skills. Maya's successful elimination of the second target was accomplished under conditions that would have been impossible for conventional sniper operations, demonstrating the value of both advanced equipment and exceptional training when applied to complex operational requirements. The shot was taken through atmospheric conditions that included industrial emissions and thermal distortions, while the target was moving between vehicles in a sequence that provided only momentary vulneration engagement. The precision required to accomplish this mission established Maya's reputation as someone capable of achieving results that exceeded normal human capabilities. The aftermath of Maya's second deployment revealed that adversary intelligence services had begun developing specific countermeasures designed to neutralize the capabilities she represented. Electronic warfare specialists had created detection systems capable of identifying the electromagnetic signatures produced by advanced optical equipment, while communications intercepts indicated that hostile forces were developing tactics specifically designed to counter long-range precision shooting by American Special Operations Forces. Maya's success was creating an arms race between offensive capabilities and defensive countermeasures that threatened to compromise future operations. Rodriguez briefed Maya on these developments during her post-deployment debriefing, explaining that exceptional capabilities inevitably attracted focused attention from adversary specialists who worked to develop specific countermeasures. The challenge facing Special Operations Forces was maintaining technological and tactical advantages in environments where adversaries could adapt their defensive measures based on analysis of successful operations. Maya's continued effectiveness would require constant evolution of techniques and equipment to stay ahead of countermeasures being developed by increasingly sophisticated opponents. The third deployment that Maya received pushed her capabilities into entirely new territory by requiring her to operate as part of a small team rather than as an individual operator. The mission involved eliminating multiple high-value targets simultaneously across a geographical area that exceeded the coverage possible by a single sniper, while maintaining coordination that would prevent any target from receiving warning of attacks against the others. The complexity of multi-target engagement required Maya to work with other specialists whose capabilities complemented her own while introducing communication and coordination challenges that multiplied the difficulty of achieving mission success. Maya's team partners included specialists in electronic warfare, urban infiltration, and close-quarters combat whose combined abilities enabled operations that exceeded what any individual could accomplish alone. Coordinating multiple specialists also created vulnerabilities that did not exist in solo operations, as communication between team members could be intercepted by adversary intelligence services, while the larger operational footprint increased the probability of detection by surveillance systems. Maya discovered that working as part of a team required her to develop skills in leadership and coordination that extended far beyond her individual shooting capabilities. The target array for Maya's third deployment consisted of 5 individuals whose elimination would disrupt a terrorist network that had been responsible for attacks across multiple countries. Intelligence analysis indicated that all 5 targets would be present in the same urban area during a 3-day window, but their locations were separated by distances that required careful positioning of team members to ensure simultaneous engagement capability. Additionally, the targets maintained security measures that included communications monitoring and counter-surveillance capabilities that could detect preparation for attack if operations were not conducted with absolute discretion. Maya's role in the team operation involved eliminating the primary target from extreme range while providing overwatch capability for other team members who would engage secondary targets at closer distances. Her position was established on a building rooftop that offered sightlines to multiple target locations while remaining concealed from observation by security forces or civilian populations. The advanced Barrett system she employed for this mission incorporated technology that enabled her to engage multiple targets in rapid succession while maintaining the accuracy required for precise shot placement under challenging conditions. The coordination required for simultaneous multi-target engagement pushed communication capabilities to their limits as team members had to maintain constant awareness of each other's status while avoiding detection by adversary monitoring systems. Maya learned to use encrypted communication protocols that provided secure connectivity while minimizing electromagnetic signatures that could reveal team positions to electronic warfare specialists. The mental discipline required to maintain situational awareness across multiple engagement sites while preparing for precision shooting under time pressure tested her abilities in ways that individual operations never had. Maya's successful elimination of her assigned target was accomplished despite complications that arose when one team member encountered unexpected security measures that threatened to compromise the entire operation. Her ability to adapt firing sequences in response to changing tactical conditions while maintaining accuracy across extreme engagement ranges demonstrated the value of both advanced training and exceptional equipment when applied to complex operational scenarios. However, the mission also revealed vulnerabilities in multi-team operations that required development of new tactics and procedures for future deployments. The evolution of Maya's capabilities from individual marksmanship to team leadership represented a fundamental shift in her role within Special Operations Forces. Her proven ability to accomplish impossible missions had established her reputation as someone capable of achieving results that exceeded normal human limitations. But her development as a team leader opened possibilities for operations that could achieve strategic objectives rather than merely tactical successes. Rodriguez recognized that Maya's unique combination of technical expertise and leadership potential made her suitable for responsibilities that extended far beyond conventional sniper operations. Advanced training programs designed specifically for Maya's expanded role included study of strategic military theory, intelligence analysis techniques, and operational planning methodologies that prepared her to design and execute complex missions rather than simply implementing plans developed by others. She learned to evaluate intelligence sources for reliability and relevance while developing contingency plans that could adapt to changing conditions without compromising operational security. The intellectual demands of strategic planning required her to develop analytical skills that complemented her existing technical expertise. Maya's fourth deployment represented a quantum leap in operational complexity as she was assigned responsibility for planning and executing a mission that would eliminate an entire terrorist leadership structure in a single coordinated operation. The target network included 7 high-value individuals whose elimination would effectively destroy an organization that had been responsible for attacks across multiple continents. However, the targets maintained sophisticated security measures that included dedicated counter-intelligence capabilities and protective details trained by former special operations personnel who understood the threats posed by American military forces. The operational planning phase for Maya's fourth mission required coordination between multiple intelligence agencies, special operations units, and technology development programs that provided capabilities existing nowhere in conventional military structures. Satellite surveillance systems were repositioned to provide continuous coverage of target locations while signals intelligence operations monitored communications networks for changes in security postures that might indicate awareness of impending attacks. Maya's role as mission commander required her to integrate information from dozens of sources while maintaining operational security that prevented adversary detection of preparation activities. Maya's team for the fourth deployment included 12 specialists whose combined capabilities enabled simultaneous engagement of targets across an urban area covering several square kilometers. Each team member possessed unique skills that were essential for mission success, but Maya bore ultimate responsibility for coordinating their activities while ensuring that operational security was maintained throughout the planning and execution phases. The leadership challenges she faced required her to make strategic decisions under pressure while maintaining the tactical expertise that had established her reputation as an exceptional operator. The execution of Maya's fourth mission achieved complete success through elimination of all 7 targets within a time window that prevented any individual from receiving warning of attacks against the others. Maya's personal contribution included the elimination of 3 targets from positions that required shooting capabilities exceeding those possessed by conventional snipers, while her coordination of team activities ensured that all objectives were accomplished without compromise of operational security. The strategic impact of the mission effectively dismantled a terrorist organization that had threatened civilian populations across multiple countries for over a decade. Maya's success as both an individual operator and team leader established her position among the most elite personnel within American Special Operations Forces. However, her exceptional capabilities also attracted attention from hostile intelligence services that began developing countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize the threats she represented. The arms race between offensive capabilities and defensive countermeasures was entering a new phase where technological advantages could be temporary rather than permanent, requiring constant innovation to maintain operational effectiveness. The recognition that Maya received for her contributions to special operations extended beyond military channels to include attention from policy makers who understood the strategic value of precision capabilities when applied to asymmetric warfare challenges. Her techniques and equipment were studied by researchers working to develop next-generation systems that could maintain technological advantages over adversary countermeasures. However, Maya understood that technology alone could not substitute for the human elements of judgment, adaptability, and moral responsibility that distinguished legitimate military operations from terrorism. The summons to Pentagon headquarters arrived without warning on a Tuesday morning when Maya was conducting routine training exercises with her team at Fort Bragg. The message contained classification levels she had never encountered, stamped with authorization codes that required verification through channels so secure that even her commanding officer lacked clearance to read the full contents. Within 6 hours of receiving the directive, Maya found herself aboard a military transport aircraft bound for Washington, carrying nothing but the clothes on her back and a sealed envelope containing orders that would reshape her understanding of her role within the American military structure. General Patricia Thornton waited in a conference room deep within the Pentagon's most secure sections, surrounded by maps and documents that depicted global threat assessments spanning multiple decades. Thornton had built her career managing the intersection between conventional military forces and special operations capabilities, making strategic decisions that shaped how America responded to asymmetric threats that could not be addressed through traditional warfare. Her interest in Maya stemmed from recognition that exceptional individual capabilities could sometimes achieve strategic objectives that entire military divisions might struggle to accomplish through conventional means. The briefing materials that Thornton presented painted a disturbing picture of emerging threats that challenged fundamental assumptions about national security in the 21st century. Terrorist organizations were evolving beyond traditional cellular structures into network-based entities that could adapt rapidly to countermeasures while maintaining operational capability across multiple continents. State sponsors of terrorism were providing increasingly sophisticated support that included advanced technology and training by former military personnel who understood how to exploit vulnerabilities in American defensive systems. Most concerning was intelligence indicating that hostile forces were developing capabilities specifically designed to neutralize the precision advantages that had given American forces superiority in asymmetric conflicts. Maya learned that her previous deployments had been more than tactical operations, they had been field tests of concepts that could determine how America would respond to threats that exceeded the scope of conventional military planning. Her success in eliminating high-value targets under impossible conditions had proven that individual operators with exceptional capabilities could accomplish strategic objectives while maintaining the deniability required for operations in politically sensitive environments. However, the effectiveness of these approaches had also attracted attention from adversary specialists who were developing countermeasures that threatened to neutralize precision advantages through systematic study of American operational methods. The mission that General Thornton outlined represented a quantum leap beyond anything Maya had previously undertaken. Intelligence sources had identified a gathering of terrorist leaders whose elimination would effectively dismantle multiple organizations simultaneously while demonstrating American capability to strike targets regardless of their security measures or geographical locations. However, the operational environment included countermeasures specifically designed to detect and neutralize precision shooters. While the targets maintained protective details that included former special operations personnel from several countries who understood both American tactics and the vulnerabilities they created. The target location was a fortified compound in mountainous terrain that provided natural defensive advantages while incorporating electronic warfare capabilities that could detect and jam advanced military equipment. Satellite imagery revealed overlapping fields of fire that created kill zones for anyone attempting to approach within conventional engagement ranges, while signals intelligence indicated that the compound's defenders possessed equipment capable of detecting the electromagnetic signatures produced by advanced optical systems. The challenges facing any attempt to eliminate targets within this environment exceeded those of conventional military assault while requiring precision that could distinguish between legitimate targets and non-combatant personnel. Maya's preparation for this ultimate mission required her to push both her personal capabilities and her equipment beyond all previous limits. The Barrett system that had served her throughout multiple deployments was enhanced with technology that existed nowhere in official military procurement channels, incorporating materials and mechanisms developed through research programs that operated under classifications so secure that their existence was known only to individuals with the highest levels of security clearance. The resulting weapon system represented the absolute pinnacle of precision shooting technology while requiring techniques that exceeded the capabilities of conventional training programs. Advanced ballistic computers enabled Maya to calculate firing solutions for scenarios that included multiple variables affecting projectile flight over distances that approached the theoretical maximum for small arms weapons. Atmospheric monitoring equipment provided real-time data on conditions that could influence accuracy, while satellite communication systems enabled coordination with support elements that operated across multiple time zones. However, the increased capability came with corresponding increases in complexity that required Maya to master techniques that existed nowhere in standard military documentation while maintaining the mental discipline necessary for precision shooting under extreme pressure. The insertion phase of Maya's final mission was conducted through methods that pushed covert operations beyond established protocols into territory that challenged the boundaries between legitimate military action and activities that operated in legal gray areas. Her approach to the target area required crossing international borders through routes that attracted no official attention while carrying equipment that would trigger immediate detention if discovered by authorities in any of the countries she traversed. The complexity of maintaining operational security under these conditions demonstrated how special operations had evolved beyond conventional military structures into capabilities that operated according to different rules and standards. Maya's establishment of a firing position overlooking the target compound required her to operate alone in hostile territory for an extended period while maintaining readiness for an engagement that would test every aspect of her training and equipment. The hide site she constructed was located at a distance that exceeded the range of conventional counter-sniper measures while providing sight lines to locations where intelligence sources indicated the targets would appear. However, the extreme range also meant that atmospheric conditions across the entire flight path would affect accuracy, requiring constant monitoring and recalculation of firing solutions as environmental factors changed throughout the day. The surveillance phase of Maya's operation revealed that the targets had implemented security measures that exceeded intelligence estimates while demonstrating awareness of American precision shooting capabilities that suggested they had received specific training in countermeasures. Electronic warfare equipment continuously swept the area for signatures that might indicate the presence of advanced military systems, while the compound's defensive positions were manned by personnel who displayed the tactical discipline characteristic of former special operations training. Maya realized that her engagement window would be measured in seconds rather than minutes, requiring split-second decision-making that left no margin for error. The complexity of target identification under these conditions pushed Maya's abilities beyond all previous experience as she worked to confirm the identities of individuals who appeared only briefly in locations where positive identification was challenging even through advanced optical systems. Intelligence briefings had provided detailed photographs and behavioral analysis that should have enabled recognition, but the security measures implemented by the targets included disguises and deception techniques that complicated visual confirmation. Maya understood that error in target identification could result in civilian casualties that would compromise both the mission and American credibility in future operations. Environmental conditions during the engagement window included crosswinds that varied in intensity and direction across the extended range to target, while temperature gradients created by the mountainous terrain introduced ballistic complications that required constant adjustment of firing solutions. The compound's location in a valley created atmospheric effects that were difficult to predict, while rocky terrain generated unpredictable air currents that could deflect projectiles from their intended trajectories. Maya's preparation for these challenges required her to integrate data from multiple sources while maintaining the mental focus necessary for precision shooting under combat conditions. The shot that would define Maya's legacy was taken under conditions that tested the absolute limits of both human capability and technological advancement. 7 high-value targets appeared simultaneously in different locations within the compound, presenting an engagement opportunity that existed for less than 30 seconds before security protocols would move them beyond reach. Maya's Barrett system enabled her to engage multiple targets in rapid succession while maintaining accuracy that placed each shot within millimeters of calculated impact points despite the extreme challenges posed by range, atmospheric conditions, and time pressure. The elimination of all 7 targets within the narrow engagement window represented a feat of marksmanship that exceeded theoretical calculations for human capability under combat conditions. Each shot required individual calculation of firing solutions that accounted for different environmental factors affecting projectile flight to separate locations within the compound. The precision required to accomplish this achievement established Maya as the most capable long-range specialist in American military history while demonstrating that exceptional individual abilities could still achieve strategic objectives in an era of technological warfare. Maya's extraction from the operational area was conducted immediately following the engagement as intelligence sources had warned that the compound's security forces included rapid response capabilities that would mobilize within minutes of detecting attack. Her exfiltration route had been planned to avoid predictable paths while maintaining communication with extraction assets that operated under their own security constraints. The success of her withdrawal from hostile territory under these conditions completed a mission that had pushed covert operations beyond established parameters into territory that redefined what was possible for individual operators. The strategic impact of Maya's successful elimination of the 7 targets effectively dismantled multiple terrorist organizations while demonstrating American capability to strike high-value targets regardless of their security measures or geographical locations. Intelligence analysis confirmed that the leadership vacuum created by the simultaneous eliminations had fractured command structures that had taken years to develop while creating internal conflicts that prevented effective reorganization. The mission achieved strategic objectives that conventional military forces might have struggled to accomplish through months of sustained operations. Recognition of Maya's achievement extended beyond military channels to include attention from policymakers who understood the implications of precision capabilities when applied to asymmetric warfare challenges. Her techniques became the subject of classified studies aimed at developing training programs that could produce operators with similar capabilities, while her equipment was analyzed by researchers working to understand how technological advantages could be maintained over adversary countermeasures. However, attempts to replicate her success revealed that exceptional performance required unique combinations of individual talent, training, and experience that could not be easily reproduced through systematic programs. The medal ceremony that honored Maya's contributions was conducted in a secure facility with attendance limited to individuals whose security clearances enabled them to understand the full scope of her achievements. The citation accompanying her decoration referenced operations that would remain classified for decades while acknowledging capabilities that had redefined American Special Operations doctrine. Maya's receipt of the Medal of Honor marked her as the first woman to receive the nation's highest military decoration for actions involving precision shooting while establishing her position among the most elite personnel in American military history. General Thornton's presentation of Maya's medal included recognition that her achievements had transcended individual accomplishment to influence strategic thinking about how America would respond to emerging threats in an evolving security environment. Maya's proven ability to eliminate high-value targets under impossible conditions had demonstrated that precision capabilities could achieve strategic objectives while maintaining the flexibility required for operations in politically sensitive environments. Her legacy would influence military doctrine for generations while inspiring future operators to push beyond accepted limitations in pursuit of mission success. Maya's transition from active operations to training responsibilities reflected recognition that her knowledge and experience represented national assets that deserve preservation and transmission to future generations of special operations personnel. The advanced training programs she developed incorporated lessons learned from her operational deployments while pushing new operators to achieve capabilities that approached her own exceptional standards. However, Maya understood that teaching precision shooting required more than technical instruction. It demanded development of mental discipline and moral responsibility that distinguished legitimate military operations from criminal violence. The Barrett rifle system that had enabled Maya's achievements was retired to a place of honor in the Special Operations Museum, where it would serve as a reminder of what exceptional individuals could accomplish when provided with advanced technology and unlimited support. The weapon's custom modifications remained classified to prevent adversary duplication, while its legacy continued through the training programs Maya developed for future generations of precision shooters. Her father's original contributions had evolved through her achievements into doctrine that would influence American military capabilities for decades to come. Years later, when Maya had earned recognition as one of the most influential figures in modern special operations history, she would occasionally return to ranges where new operators trained to achieve the standards she had established. The targets positioned at extreme distance served as reminders of the precision required to accomplish strategic objectives through individual action, while the training scenarios she developed pushed new operators to achieve capabilities that exceeded conventional limitations. Her legacy lived on not just in the records of her achievements but in the operators who carried forward the traditions of excellence that she had established through her exceptional service. The evolution of Maya's career from individual marksmanship to strategic influence demonstrated how exceptional capabilities could transcend tactical applications to achieve effects that shaped military doctrine and national security policy. Her proven ability to accomplish impossible missions had established principles that would guide American responses to asymmetric threats, while her training programs ensured that future operators would possess capabilities necessary to maintain technological and tactical advantages over evolving adversary countermeasures. Maya's legacy represented the ultimate expression of precision, professionalism, and dedication to service that defined the highest standards of American military excellence. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.